Get to class, son. School isn't a game.
But this is. Blockbuster Video has the newest and hottest video games you crave.
Life is a challenge, not a game.
Well, now it's both at Blockbuster Video, where the challenge never ends.
There were more than 800 games released on the Sega Genesis / Mega Drive. There were also, according to my research, hundreds of games that were planned for the system but never came to fruition. But some of these made it to the prototype stage, and sometimes even to mostly completed games. As I always mention in these videos, I find video game history to be incredibly fascinating, and I always get excited when news drops of a newly dumped ROM from a game that was thought to be lost to the ages. God bless these heroes that preserve these ROMs for the gaming community at large to experience. Today we have 5 unreleased games for the almighty Sega Genesis that were never released, starting with Phto Dao. I can't wait to keep saying that name over and over again. Phto Dao was developed by Teeny Weeny Games and set to be published by Coleco USA in 1993. The character Phto Dao was created in 1985 by Joanna Ferrone and Sue Rose, with Rose initially doodling him on a napkin at a restaurant. The two began putting the character on clothing that became very popular in New York, with Phto Dao eventually being licensed to Pepsi in 1988. He was used to promote 7-Up in parts of the world and Slice Soda in the US. I mainly remember Phto Dao from his appearances during Saturday morning cartoons, when he appeared in bumpers during CBS's block of shows in the early 90s. CBS being one of the 2 channels that we picked up on our giant TV antenna. I do think he was a great design, and I can understand his popularity during the era, but how well does that transfer to a game? Well, I found this one to be pretty frustrating. It is pretty hard for me to articulate exactly why, but it just did not feel very good to play. I'll start off with the art style. I think Mr. Dao looks pretty good, but I find the graphics in general to not be very appealing. Certainly not the worst, but just sort of bland overall. The music isn't terribly offensive, but there's nothing very memorable here, and a lot of it gets pretty annoying after listening to it for a few minutes. But the biggest problem I have with Phto Dao is the fact that it is just a slog to play. Navigating the levels is not an enjoyable experience. Phto just isn't fun to control, and the level design can be cumbersome, with objectives being obtuse in some cases. There are a lot of ideas in here that I do like, such as the ability to draw blocks with a pencil in order to reach higher areas, but it is just poorly executed. There's a level in here that has you go inside of a Sega Genesis in order to fix it, which is such a cool idea. But it is just so annoying and lacking any qualities that compel me to want to keep playing. I did very much enjoy the Space Invaders that were hiding inside my Mega Drive. Phto Dao was cancelled because of the closure of Coleco's United States branch. As far as I can tell, this seems completed, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't think the cancellation of this game was any great loss to the Genesis library, but it is still an interesting piece of history. Like I said, there are some pretty neat ideas here, so you may want to check this out once for yourself to see what you think, or if you have some nostalgia and fondness for the Phto Dao character. Sepede is a prototype that was developed by Sega Technical Institute based on a pitch by Craig Stitt in 1993 after work on Sonic Spinball had been completed. The prototype consists of one level that uses art from the cut Sonic the Hedgehog 2 level, Hidden Palace Zone, and contains music from Howard Drawson. There's not a lot to this prototype. You play the titular Segapede that can shoot a projectile and attach the carcasses of his enemies to his ass. Which, that's a fun sentence. I think the graphics are very appealing, and I think the Segapede's design is awesome. It's a very good looking character. You can pretty much just zip around the level fighting enemies and avoiding hazards until you reach the flag at the end. There are a couple of warp points that will zip you to another point in the level, but the level overall is pretty small. This game was canceled in 1994 because staff was needed to work on other projects. I would have liked to see where this idea would have gone. Even though there was hardly anything here, I found my experience with it to be a more positive one than the one I had with Phto Dao, a game that was much further along in development. Definitely check this one out if you're interested in Sega history and want a glimpse of something that could have been. Now this next one, I think it's pretty interesting. Rescue was developed by Tempest Software and intended to be published by Psygnosis. In the game, you take control of a mech suit clad dude on a mission to rescue miners. Much to my surprise, because I'm not very bright, this game is mostly a series of escort missions, a gameplay mechanic that I am not particularly fond of. And yeah, when I first started playing this, it was just not clicking with me. The graphics are fine, and some of the music is really funky and really good, but I just could not get a grasp on how saving these potato-brained helpless red shirts was supposed to be fun. But after a few gameplay sessions, after I had a chance to get used to the controls and how the game works, I did actually start to have a little bit of fun. I'm not saying that I started loving this game by any means, but I did go from hating my time with it to thinking, hey, this is kind of alright, sometimes. I never really did gel with the controls fully. Something just never felt quite right to me. I would also get stuck a lot while trying to traverse the stages in my ship. The gameplay consists of you flying around in your ship and looking for miners to retrieve. When you find a miner, you get out of your ship and need to guide them back to it, making sure that both of you avoid hazards along the way. I am just not a patient enough person for this aspect of the gameplay. There's a lot of timing required, in conjunction with pattern recognition. As you progress through the game, more puzzle elements are introduced, as well as the addition of items like keys. The most interesting part of the game, to me, is the inclusion of these bonus stages that are third-person on-the-rails shooting affairs, which involve primitive 3D polygons a la Star Fox. In these segments, you shoot down enemies and fly through rings. Just like Superman! They aren't the most compelling stages, and they are pretty choppy, but I still think this is pretty impressive for the Mega Drive, and I quite enjoyed the break from the normal rescue stages. Overall, Rescue is a pretty decent game, and I am sure that there are people out there who would probably love it. It's not really a game for me, but I can recognize that although fairly mediocre, it is a well-made and enjoyable experience for those that enjoy the gameplay style. I am not sure why this game was canceled, but the build I played felt pretty close to done, if not entirely complete. I think it's a shame that this game was never released, and I recommend that all Mega Drive fans check this one out at least once. Dino Blaze was developed by Bonsai Entertainment and set to be published by Virgin Interactive Entertainment. The prototype that I have is in the very early stages of development, and is a beat-em-up featuring rollerblading dinosaurs with hockey sticks. Joseph Moses, the president of Bonsai Entertainment, said about the game, "It's a game about Teenage Mutant Ninja dinosaurs that play street hockey on the streets of New York. Teaming up with Virgin, already a key player in this industry, is a major step for Bonsai. We intend to make them very proud." That did not happen, obviously. From what I have read, this game was in development for the Genesis/Mega Drive, Sega CD, and the 3DO. There are 4 characters to select, but no matter who you select, you end up playing with Wayne. The actual gameplay in this prototype is very limited, with your character being able to skate around and attack the small smattering of enemies on each stage. It is also very buggy, with me often finding myself skating in the air without being able to get back down. There are a couple of music tracks that aren't particularly good, and the graphics and animations are very rough. Even so, using the power of my imagination, I can see some promise here. I like the character designs with their cartoony aesthetic, and I am a fan of beat-em-ups of the era, so who knows? This might have been a good game had it been completed. What we have here, though, in this prototype isn't very much, and certainly not anything to rush to hunting down and playing. Come on, Barbie, let's go party. Barbie Vacation Adventure was developed by Software Creations and set to be published by High Tech Entertainment in 1994. It is a game that finds Barbie taking holidays around the United States, with each state featuring different mini-games and objectives. I am, very obviously, not in the target demographic for this game, so there really wasn't a lot for me here. This game seems completed though, and I am unsure as to why it wasn't released. It isn't god-awful by any stretch of the imagination. I have played released children's games that were far, far worse than this. I could definitely see this being something my sisters would have played when we were kids. I did find the whole experience to be pretty clunky and uninteresting, but I bet a younger audience would definitely enjoy some of what is on display here. There are some educational elements to the gameplay, with some shape matching and things of that sort. Parts of it, such as the horse sections in Texas, were kind of fun. There were, though, in my opinion, more sections that were just plain dull, not engaging, and sometimes frustrating. Like when I was expected to do this platforming in Wyoming. This section was not well thought out. I don't think it's the best kids software I have ever played, but like I said, I have played far, far worse. I think little kids would find something to like here, but it is just hard for me to make a fair assessment overall, I think. I don't think the world really missed out here, but it might be worth a gander if you are at all curious. And there we go, 5 games for the Sega Genesis / Mega Drive that just never came to pass. As always, there were a couple of these that I wish would have come out, and there were a few that, I don't think were any great loss to the Genesis catalog. Let me know what you think of the games we covered here today, and if there are any other unreleased Genesis games that you would like to see me cover in the future, definitely let me know that as well. And with that, I want to thank everyone for watching. Make sure you go check out the other videos we have in this playlist. I hope everyone has a beautiful day, and I will see you next time. Bye. I feel like chicken tonight, like chicken tonight, like chicken tonight. Anybody remember those commercials? Anybody remember Chicken Tonight? I can't be the only one.